This video in the series of videos that I've been shooting for the Saffron Teddy Bear, designed by Noreen Crone-Findlay, that's me, is for weaving the body and legs of a pink and white panda bear. So, but this time, I'm trying to work in as many different techniques into the series of the Saffron Bears, and so this one is all about weaving with super bulky yarn on the saffron loom or other frame looms. Now, this was a thrift shop find, and I went, "Oh, great! That's excellent!" So I thought, now this is a perfect way to show how to weave with a super bulky yarn, because it's really bulky. And there just is no way. Now, normally I warp with 2 strands of yarn for the warp, and then weave with 1 strand using a weaving stick or crochet hook. Not a weaving stick, a weaving hook or a crochet hook. But because of the thickness of the yarn, of the super bulky, I'm just going to be using a weaving needle and weaving over 1, under 1. So I've warped with a single strand of yarn. I left an end, quite a long end, and made it's not going to be the traveling strand, because when you're weaving with a weaving needle, you don't need a traveling strand. This is for gathering the neck edge, because you weave from the neck, up the body, up the legs. The body, I'm going to cut myself a length of yarn, a couple of yards long. I'm not measuring, just cutting. Oh, I also need to weave my shed stick over across the warp strands. And that will automatically leave open this shed, so I only have to pick up 1. Here you can see, I think a bit better if I use this one. I only have to pick up 1 row of weaving every other row with the, when you use a shed stick. If you don't, you have to pick up every single stitch of every single row. So I've threaded my weaving needle, and the body of the Saffron Bear is 2 inches woven across the loom on 20 strands of warp strands. And so I'm going to weave across, going over, under 1, and I will ease the yarn all the way through. Oh, I did take quite a long piece, didn't I? And you always kind of arch your yarn in so that you're not going to hourglass in the yarn too much. The one technique that does tend to hourglass it is the striped onesie bear that you'll see in another video. And now I picked up the first row, but when I'm weaving back, I just slide my weaving needle in the shed, and it comes through. And I always start my beating. So I've made the arch, and I start my beating at the edge that is enclosed by the weaving and at the weaving needle. So I will weave 1 inch in. This is going to be tabby weave, which is evenly dispersed, so that I'm taking the end through this loop here, that starting end of the weft. So you will see in your weave, it's a 1-1 weave, you'll see your 1 row of horizontal, 1 row of vertical, and we'll do 1 row of 1 inch of tabby, for the body of the panda. Panda bears don't always have to be black and white. In fact, when I was a child, they came in all kinds of colors. And so that has made me quite fond of having different color panda bears. So let's see. This might be enough of the... So do you see how I'm kind of pulling out on the edges just to encourage the weaving to not buckle in on me? So I'll just ease that into place. It's very quick to weave with the super bulky yarn. And that gives me my 1 inch of the shoulder patch of the panda bear. And I'm going to take I've taken the yarn out of my weaving needle. I'm going to go grab some white, also a thrift shop find, and I'm now going to change my flight plan here. I'm going to go under and over 2 strands with the white, because that with the having a wider pitch there, I'm going to be able to beat my white yarn down. See, I'm including the weft yarn there, that because I want to have it come out at the top of the of this 1 inch of the lower body. Okay, and so I go scoot through, going over 2, under 2, and see how when I go through, whoops, I just unthreaded my yarn there. When I go under over 2 strands there, it's much easier for me to pack my white yarn down to cover the warp strands. I'm just going to do a bit of a knot, half a knot there, to tie that in, and then I will weave that end in after. Beat, beat, beat. So you can either use a fork, or if you have this is a dog grooming rake, that works great, or use a proper, use a comb. Combs work, the big tooth combs, or a proper tapestry beater works too, beating comb. So by going over and under the 2 strands, I can cover that warp strand quite nicely. If I just wove tabby with the white, I'd get a kind of a checkerboard, and I don't want that for the lower half of the panda body. Have to thread another end here because the thrift shop yarn is, someone cut them into short lengths. I'm going to bring this and up through these strands, and then keep pushing my white cloud of weaving down into the body of the weaving. But this, doing the weft face weaving for the white section of the body means that you don't have to stop, and you could just warp up another section using white yarn and for the warp and the weft, and then weave tabby. But this way you can weave the body and legs all together, which is kind of a nice thing to be able to do that. I'll measure and see how I'm doing with if I've got enough there for my, yes, good. Okay, so now I'm going to I pulled out my weaving, my shed stick, and I'll lift this down again because I'm going to just be working now on one leg. So I will go over 10 sets of strands, and I will put the pink back into the weaving needle, and I will continue now from the hip line. This is the hip line, this is the waistline, shoulder line, hip, and tip of toes, because the feet will be turned up. I'm going to now carry on weaving the first leg up the body, up the half of the warp strands, and using tabby weave again. So I'm just going under one and over one, up those warp strands until I reach the top of the loom. So I'm going to carry on weaving to the top of the loom with the first leg, and when I'm done the first leg, I'll come back and show you how I start the second leg and weave the second leg. There's a bit of schmutz there. Get that out of there. Okay, so I'll just carry on weaving this leg from the hip to the toes and come right back. I have finished weaving the first leg. I had to join more yarn to finish the leg because I ran out of yarn. Now, normally you would not tie a knot. Very rarely would you tie a knot to join new yarn. But with the teddy bears, I like to tie my my ends in a knot at the edge because that is going to secure that edge when it's sewn together, and the knot will go on the inside. And when I wove my end down into here, and I have tied a knot there, and I will I have an end here where I started the second piece of the white yarn, and afterwards I will lock that in with a felting needle. Now I'm going to start my second leg, and so I go under, over with my shed stick over the remaining 10 warp strands for the second leg, and I have cut my warp, my weft yarn off from the first leg, and I like to have it secured. Again, I will secure it here. I'm going to tie it with a knot to the warp strand, and that knot kind of is under the white of the lower part of the body, so it's going to be okay. It's going to be hidden, and it'll be stitched into the body of the bear. So I'm just going to weave the second leg exactly the same way I wove the first leg, weaving under one, over one from the hip line up to the toes. So I will just carry on weaving this leg, and we'll come back when I have the second leg woven. Shall be buttermilk. So the pink and white panda is now, the body and legs are now woven, and using the super bulky yarn and weaving with weaving needles rather than a weaving hook or crochet hook. And you can weave all of the bears with a weaving needle if you prefer that to the weaving hook process. So the bear can now just be lifted off and wait for assembly. So of course the bear will be folded and stitched and stuffed. The feet will be turned up, and we will have a pink and white panda.